I've talked to you guys in the past about how important it is to take things with a pinch of salt. And it appears that Byline Times have kind of a bit of an inkling to what I'm talking about here. We're going to read into this analysis or thoughts of a headline that's called Lies, Damning Lies and Strategic Lies. Let's read all about it, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article or analysis or thoughts from Byline Times here, and the headline that Lies, Damn Lies and Strategic Lies. Ivor Gamba examines the techniques of repeated untruths for a particular gain and how to counter it. So one of the things that the so-called right wing like to do is they lie, but bend the truth as well I think we've talked about in the past about how Nigel Farage, one of the biggest liars of all, one of Brexiteers' biggest con men. One of the things that he's very good at is lying, but also giving a little bit of truth to things that are happening in order to manipulate and convince people to believe in his versions of things. And it's not just the case that those either straight up lying when it comes to politicians and whatnot, but it's also like how they bend it, how they say it, how they come across it, and the way it's enforced into the minds of people. There's a lot of psychology as well when it comes to how you lie and mislead a person. See, I'll give you an example. So somebody claimed that my video on homelessness, some of you guys may have seen that video that went viral on my channel recently, not too long ago, and someone claimed that I was lying because I claimed that I claimed that the Metropolitan Police may have been responsible, and I stated in it that they may have been responsible, and one person in the comment basically said, "You're lying to the people by stating that," and I said, and I specifically said, we don't know who exactly is responsible for it. But that person, because that person didn't properly listen and listen to what I said in terms of reading that article, assumed that I am bumping out misinformation and lying to the general public. Now, as a channel, what you guys normally see is what I do is I pull out an article, I give you my thoughts, we read the article, and then I give some more thoughts every now and then in that article, and then I give my final thoughts at the end. Is what we normally do. But just because wherever I get that from doesn't necessarily mean that it's true as well, because there have been cases where I've had a video where I had it ready, but then another YouTuber or another article comes up and it becomes either misleading or irrelevant of this case. We also had the incident as well not too long ago about, if you guys remember, someone was attacked. A poppy seller was being allegedly claimed to have been attacked by pro-Palestinian marchers in Edinburgh. When it found out, in the actual case, the story was that he basically fell over a child, and apparently that was enough for him to make that story, and it was blown up out of proportion. And even I, reading from the eye, exclusive from the eye, was very, I was quite strong in my remarks saying that if the story was to be true, pro-Palestinian people need to marches and all that kind of stuff need to think about what they're doing and all this kind of stuff. And it turned out just to be a massive false. But the thing is what they did was, even though that story was not true, in the end, the fact is that it's already warped into people's minds that it is true, because it's been blown out there to the public by the mainstream media that this incident happened, when it actually turned out it didn't happen. But the damage had already been done by the time they rectify it, because if they choose to rectify it, because it's already out there. People know about it. Put it on the front page of a Daily Mail, Daily Express, whatever. And the other thing is as well is that people don't always need to buy the newspaper and actually read it. Some people just look at the headlines, and they're just walking past along the street, and if they see a headline that sticks out to them, they'll look at it and they'll think, what? Sort of thing. So these are just many ones of many examples of lies. But we have all done lies of some sorts in our lives, or misleading lies, or intentional lies, or some of us have done lies with the benefit of doing good. There are cases where some people lie in order to where it can be actually beneficial, like not telling someone certain something because it may involve them hurting another one, or it may mean that someone's life potentially could be saved. So there is such a thing as good lies, but obviously the vast majority of people are known for bad lies or misleading or mistrusting ones. But let's read what Byline Times have had to say, because I've rattled on quite a bit. So, you might not have known it, but you should be foolish enough to vote for a Labour government at the next general election. Then you won't be allowed to travel more than 15 minutes from your home. You'll have to sort your rubbish out into 7 different recycling bins, and you'll have to pay a special tax on meat. I remember those policies. The Conservatives said that Labour were going to do all these things, weren't they? Turns out they were lying, weren't they? Well, actually, you won't. None of these are true, but they are examples of a form of spin dubbed strategic lies, a technique which is being increasingly mobilised by the mainly right-wing spin doctors and politicians. So these are strategic lies to make people believe they're going to do this to you, they're going to do this to you, and they're saying, no, we're not. And then you're like, but how can I trust you if you're telling me that you're going to do that? They're saying you're going to do this. We're not going to do this. But how do I know you are not going to do this? Creates that narrative. You only need to create the narrative, and sometimes people can be swayed just by the narrative. Accusations that politicians lie are far from new, but the intensity of such accusations has increased in recent years, and strategic lies are one reason why. An early incarnation came in 2011 when Donald Trump, at the time theoretically supported the Democrats, claimed to have proof that President Barack Obama was not being born in the United States, making him eligible to occupy the White House. It was the start of a so-called birthery controversy. Trump went as far to say that he was sending a team of private investigators to Hawaii to learn the truth, and promised to donate £5 million to charity to anyone that could convince him that Obama was born on US soil. There is no record of any such team arriving in Hawaii, nor of Trump's donating £5 million to a charity following the publication of Obama's birth certificate. Over the next 3 years, Trump continued to raise the issue despite the lie being comprehensively rebutted. He kept repeating it, not because he expected people to believe it, but as a strategic lie. It kept the issue of Obama's otherness near the top of the mainstream news agenda. It's no coincidence that a similar controversy was mounted against Vice President Kamala Harris shortly after she was nominated as Joe Biden's running mate in 2020. The inauguration of the British version came with the EU referendum. We send Brussels £350 million a week, let's spend it on the NHS instead, was painted as the side of several campaign buses, the backdrop of almost every Brexiteer interview. See, that's the thing. It doesn't matter that it's a lie. What matters is you keep hammering home that information. You see, Trump is in a lot of trouble, as you guys know, from a lot of court cases. His response is to attack the system itself. Attack the system, saying the system is out to get me. They're all out to get me. I've done nothing wrong. They're all trying to get me, and you guys need to help me and support me in doing this. I'm all right. They're the ones who are wrong, and and even though he knows that he's lying, and he knows that it's not going to make a difference in terms of the outcome of the case. The point is to feed the narrative to his supporters that you cannot trust these people. None of them can be trusted. I'm the only one who sees the truth. And the thing is that people believe it. And even those who are not doing well in life or whatever circumstances, some people in life just aren't that successful, and they look for a reason to blame someone. And sometimes people will just blame the leader of the nation for saying, like, my life's not better because of you, rather than it could have been the case of that person doing more. And they look at Trump, and they look at how different he is, and they look at things that he said, and like, despite the fact that he's absolutely out of whack here when he does some of his speeches, this is someone that is going to keep feeding the narrative. It doesn't matter whether it's the truth or if it's a lie. And they're claiming free speech, free speech, free speech, and it's just like, well, it's not free speech, mate. You're misleading people. But the problem is that the information, once it starts, it's already out there. So the thing is that we need to stop people doing it. If there are laws in place that stop people from doing these lies, if you're a politician and that kind of thing, you protect freedom of speech a lot better as well, as opposed to this, what I would call uncensored free speech, that they're allowed to mislead and damage the intent of the British public. And the problem is that it feeds into the media, not just so much that because they control the media, to some of the media to their extent, but it sells newspapers. It grabs headlines. It gets people invested. So when there's a crazy story or a headline that comes in, they're just going to go. They're all going to just jump right onto it, because it's content. It's content that's going to make you go to it because it's big news, isn't it? It didn't like to. Obviously, they will. If some news outlets will tell you if it's a truth or a lie, but the point is that the context is going to grab your attention, and that's what it's all about: pulling you from the truth to mislead you down a wrong hole. Powerful stuff. Yeah, we talked about all them. Just ignore the cat in the background. Don't worry, he's fine if you hear him. At the start of the campaign, ITV News' Tom Broadbury interviewed Boris Johnson for 8 minutes, largely about £350 million claim. Broadbury did a thorough job of exposing just how misleading that figure was, but the Brexiteers were far from disappointed, for in those 8 minutes they had established that the cost of our membership of EU was the central issue, forcing the Remain campaign to come up with its own figures and ensuring that the issue of the cost of membership stayed centre stage. See, that's the thing. Again, deflect, and point out the faults of theirs, even if they're not true. It still paints that picture. It's about painting that picture. Psychology, guys, psychology. After it was all over in a lengthy blog post, Vote Leave mastermind Dominic Cummings described the lie as a brilliant communications ploy, saying it worked much better than I thought it would. He also highlighted another of the Brexiteers' successful strategic lies: Turkey's population, 76 million, is joining the EU. Like, come on. Like, the thing is, it doesn't matter what the population is. It's just, it scares people. It's just like, they're coming. All these people are coming. And and again, painting that picture. Doesn't matter if that person is not into politics or doesn't even watch the news that much or whatever. You see something like that, you're gonna, people will start thinking about it and they will start worrying. It's manipulation at the highest echelons is what it is. It's true that many years ago, in 1987, Turkey applied for membership, but since then much has changed, including the commitment by key EU members to veto any such application. But there was sufficient truth in the claim for it to frighten the Brexiteers' inclined horses, or put it less politely, to reinforce xenophobic feelings as a further reason to vote leave. A classic dog whistle of saying one thing out loud but sending a different message to those more attuned to the whistle. So what is a strategic lie? As the examples illustrate, communicating accurate information is not the strategic lie's major concern. Its prime purpose is to either siege or hold the news agenda. A subset of this technique aimed at blocking an unhelpful story from dominating the news agenda is the dead cat strategy, which entails using a sensational policy proposal or statement to capture the attention of journalists and public. A dead cat suddenly drops from out of nowhere and it's a pretty good conversation stopper. David Cameron, right? Remember David Cameron when he became Foreign Secretary? Obviously, the story of the day, of that day on that Monday when Suella Braverman was sacked as Home Secretary. Everyone was like, oh, what's Suella Braverman going to do? What's all this kind of stuff? And then all of a sudden, David Cameron pops up as Foreign Secretary. All of a sudden, people stop talking about Braverman and they're talking about David Cameron, because Rishi Sunak didn't want people talking about her. They wanted to talk about, oh, look at this shiny old toy that we brought back. Misdirection, guys. Misdirection. The lies must contain a scintilla of truth in order to keep the debate going, with the Brexit lies did. Yeah, a little bit of truth, but mostly lies. By contrast, the latest lies peddled at the Conservative Party conference, the meat tax, etc., were spectacularly unsuccessful because they were so obviously nonsensical. As the failed attempts of the NHS Secretary Claire Coutinho to defend them in a succession of TV interviews vividly demonstrated. Another defining characteristic of a strategic lie is that the issue it highlights has salinated. It must be about an issue of the current concerns and may be sufficiently sensational to catch public attention. The Conservative announcement during the 2019 election campaign that it would build 40 new hospitals, for example, appeared to work because health was one of the main campaign issues, and the scintilla of truth that the figures included unapproved plans in the pipework, and even new hospital wings. In contrast, concerns about, for example, being banned from driving for more than 50 minutes from home, and it did not cut with the public for obvious reasons. The lie is not formulated to convince opponents. Its main function is to strengthen the resolve of supporters and maybe win over a few doubters. To do this, it has to be consistent with supporters' common sense understanding of the way the world works. A voter who sees the word sublime in woke, or as in least fears it might be, would not be surprised to learn that they are being expected to sort their rubbish into 7 bins, and it might also just confirm the doubts of those who only suspect it. Paints those who have not see, the thing is like I said, guys, most of you who watch my channels, who watch other YouTubers, you're more on the ball. You're more on the eye of what's happening in your world and what's going on, because you pay attention to news and politics. The average Joe in some societies don't pay attention, and this is where the manipulation is. This system that they are using is to build a support of people behind them, regardless of what they say. It's to twist their minds with a bit of truth and mainly lies, and eventually to suck them all in and bend them to their will, basically. Once the message has been embedded, the power of social media kicks in, with the lie being repeated and embellished as it weaves its way through the labyrinths of social and some mainstream media, GB News and All the Mail, for example. And any hint of it being part of a bigger global conspiracy also helps the amplification process. Once the strategic lie has become official, it becomes difficult to successfully rebut, as research by behavioural and political psychologists have demonstrated. How the lie spreads, guys. A large-scale study of Twitter in 2018 shows how lies spread on social media significantly further, faster and deeper and more broadly than the truth, and that this particularly applies to political news, using social media to enable the sender to target messages at specific groups. Another advantage of social media for the strategic lie campaigner is that the statements of dubious factual accuracy are subject to less scrutiny, or that at least different types of scrutiny than there was the case when traditional media alone performed this role. Because of the sheer flow of information, it becomes virtually impossible to either experts or specialist journalists to check and challenge every continuous tweet or post. Studies have also found that correcting inaccurate statements online in real time by either journalists or fact-checking organisations has little impact on people's views, as the continuation support of Trump's stolen election claim demonstrates. Yeah, people still believe it, because it's not a dead and buried topic, because certain people still say it, even though it's a blatant lie. Those sympathetic to the original message reject the correction, discouraging it as coming from a partisan source, or they barely notice the correction in the first place, and people's memories of the correction fade rapidly. Although they do retain a memory of the original lie, this tends to occur because the remembered lie is in tune with and reinforces their own political understanding. But by accepting the lie, the behaviour avoids cohesive dissonance, the emotion we feel when we're forced to confront information that contradicts our existing political understandings, and coherent dissonance that leads to a confirmation bias, a bias that arrives due to our only noticing and retaining information that reinforces our own window. This is a very key point here. So once you have a belief and you're constantly reinforce that same belief, and it is your choice, and the thing is that people choose to stay in that bias of views rather than potentially be keen to go outside of their bubble and look at other things because their belief and their knowledge is accurate and what everyone else says is false. And this is where someone in the comments section will say, but Regan, you don't cover any news articles on the Daily Mail or Express or the Telegraph or GB News or Talk TV. Isn't that the other side of the spectrum? And you choose not to cover them. And that's true. I do choose not to cover them. Because my general belief is that they are the ones responsible for creating this kind of bias, this kind of information that is destroying this country, and it's the same thing happening in America. I also believe it's happening in other nations as well. And it works. That's why if it's up to them, the right wingers, when they're in power, they don't want to invest as much in education because they want a future generation of dumber kids. Not smart kids, dumber kids. Because they want them all to fall for their manipulation and lies. Don't they? The other key findings of the behavioural science literal is the tried and tested of repetition. This partly arises as a result of simple reinforcement, but partly because we tend to be conceited meisters. In other words, we find it easier to accept information that we have previously processed rather than having to make the effort of processing something that is entirely new. All of this contributes to a climate where political leaders are effectively granted a permission to lie. In the past, politicians caught lying either to or were forced to resign, but this is no longer the case. It's worth remembering that despite all obvious lies, Boris Johnson's resignation came not because of his lies, but because of his attempts to defend Chris Pincher following allegations about his sexual misconduct. So what can be done? The answer resides in three key words: speed, reputation, and transparency. The speed is ensuring that the lie is instantly rebutted before it is taken root in the public mind. Reputation entails slapping down that every lie every time it surfaces, and the transparency involves finding verifiable rebuttals and ensuring that at least trying to ensure that they receive as much exposure as does a strategic lie. Whether it works in place, at least in the UK or the US, is something that will be learned in the next 12 months. Let's hope it does. So what did you guys make of that? I've gone well over time. This was much longer than I thought it would be, but I've kind of given my points really on lies, damn lies, and strategic lies, to be fair. But what do you guys honestly think about these? About the lies and manipulations that are being used in the news, guys? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below, what you thought of it all. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share across social media so others can see it too. And hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And also, if you want to financially support me, you can buy me a coffee in the links down below, or you can join me on Patreon. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.